Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Daily BizLink. Stacie Mallen is with us today, and we're talking about the idea of becoming a goal getter as we launch and enter in 2021. So, Stacie, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Lindsay. It's a few weeks before Christmas, and we talked about this last week. December, in my opinion, is one of the best times of the year to start thinking and doing goals, not just planning, but actually starting to get to some goals. But one thing that Blake and I talk a lot about is setting a theme. And this is true in corporate goal setting if you've ever gone through a strategic planning process, but it's also applicable, hiccups this morning. Thank you. Thank you. After my 3-mile run, that was my goal this morning. Blake and I talk about setting a theme for personal goals. And we talked about this last week. How do you want to feel? How do you want to feel every day starting in 2021? What is that goal for you? What's that theme? And so setting that theme also creates a lens. So I always use last year. Irony is I went into 2020 really focused, no pun intended, focused on calm and foundation and no more drama, just really creating a lot of foundation in my life. And then of course, it was all about the drama. So, but I use the example of if that's my lens, as I'm choosing things in my life, are they falling into that goal? Are they falling into that feels? So that when I'm setting goals, I'm using that as a lens. So, and I always say last year with everything that happened, one thing that fell outside of that lens, lots of things fell outside of that lens, but we got a puppy. And I'm like, but I did go back 3 and 4 times. We went round and round about it because I continue to say that's really not where I wanted to be this year. I wanted to create more calm. There were other reasons that we ended up doing it, most of which had to do with my children and the fact we were minus a dog and had been for a little bit. But that was it's an example of how you can use a theme. So set a theme using what we talked about last week. So a theme can really fall into several different categories. It can be one of the pillars. So I want to feel healthier in my body, or I want to be more connected to my children, or I want to build my business to create greater momentum on revenue. So it can be a theme. That can be a theme. It's based on those pillars, or it can just be, I want to feel more of this. So those are the different ways to set a theme. And then it's about micro goals. So have you ever set micro goals before? Probably.
I'm sure I
Yeah.
have.
Yeah. So all it is breaking a big goal. So if you have a big goal, like I always use running a marathon, right? Set some micro goals. And so what's a goal that you have for next year? Even if you make it up.
Well, I think this is really good because I actually challenge all of our attorneys to think through this on an annual basis. So we do look at what our annual goals are, then we break it down into quarters, then months, then weeks, then days, because we want that to become part of our rituals and routines. So once that becomes habits and second nature, then we're far more likely to actually make things happen. So of course, I think of like big, lofty goals, but how do we actually put those goals into action? So I am thinking through like one goal of mine is that I'm disrupting how I currently format a lot of my events. And so I'm pre-planning now what I need to do on a weekly and daily basis in order to change that, which I think a lot of that will be really positive for 2021.
Yeah, I agree. And so one thing to do in that is setting some micro goals for the next 2 weeks. So that's what I encourage people to do is start to get some traction in December. And so set some micro goals for the next 2 weeks. Like one week, like this week, you're going to get this thing done. And next week, you're going to get the next thing done. Let's just write off between December and New Year's and call it, whatever. I would say if it's a health goal, don't write off the whole week between December and New Year's. I would say that's a good time to take a mental break. But if you're working towards a physical goal, a week of moving in the wrong direction actually creates, I don't know, for me in my 40s, a week in the wrong direction is like a month and, it takes me a month to get back. So I would say set the micro goals for the next couple of weeks in December And that can help you move into 2021 already have getting some traction around that big goal. And I agree with what you said, Lindsay. I think people, I always say that I had a coach that talked about Mount Everest. Like, if you were standing at the base of Mount Everest and you looked at the top, you'd say, "There's no way I can do this." So micro goals are really not even getting to base camps. Those are really what you talked about, like quarterly goals or bigger goals. And you do need to set those and calibrate to those. But I think micro goals are even smaller than that, which is that I'm going to pack my backpack. I'm going to make sure I have my, those are micro goals. And I think it's a good time of year to start achieving, not just setting, but achieving a couple of those micro goals.
I completely agree. Well, I think you have some great advice here. My only other advice that I would tag on to what you shared today was making sure that we are celebrating those successes along the way. So if we have some micro goals for each day or each week, make sure you celebrate yourself and your accomplishments because you're far more likely to continue to push forward and do those. So some great insight. So Stacie, appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.